I took my family to a water park. It ruined our lives. Okay, buddy, we're right here. If you hurry, we can hit the wave pool before we go. I ruffled Will's hair, giving him a little push. He folded his arms, defiant. The racing slide, it's the most fun. Most fun, I corrected. And whatever you say, Willie. He nodded, satisfied, and scurried off. He weaved his way through the thick crowd, splitting families and couples as he headed for the dilapidated porta potty. This was one of the few recent attempts Will had made to use the bathroom by himself. He was on a good streak, but being out of the house, I kept an eye on the door for any signs of trouble. I swear, I would have noticed anyone coming or going. Maybe I looked away for 5 seconds. Was that enough time for him to slip out? And what? Run off in the opposite direction. About 5 minutes after he had gone, I got up. I leaned a casual arm against the porta potty. In a whisper shout over the drone of hundreds of happy pool-goers behind me, I called, "Buddy, it's me. How's it going in there?" There was movement inside, I swear it. It wasn't my imagination. I heard something. I turned and saw my wife, holding Dippin' Dots in one hand and waving with the other. You can't call it a day at the water park without ice cream. I smiled and wrinkled my nose as a joke. "All right, Will, I'm coming in." The door was unlocked. I opened it just enough to slip inside. I did a double take, turned a full 360, checked the neighboring porta potty and returned. No, he couldn't have. I peered down, past the toilet seat. Log-sized turds floated in the septic stew below. "Will?" I stepped outside and circled the porta potty. "Will?" I called again. My wife appeared next to me, holding Lila's hand. "What happened? Where's Will?" she asked. "I don't know. He was inside. Lila, did you see him leave at all?" My daughter shook her head, shoving a spoonful of dots into her mouth. "You were supposed to be watching him," my wife said. "I know." I grabbed the arm of a man nearby. "Excuse me, sir. Did you see my son leave this porta potty here?" I described Will in detail. He saw the desperation in my eyes but shook his head. "Sorry. Try the lifeguard station. I'm sure this happens all the time." He wished us luck, and I thanked him. My wife was beginning to cry, scaring Lila. I ran ahead, cutting through one of the splash pads and hopping the fence to the lifeguard station. "Oh, excuse me, sir." Some acne-riddled teenager in a red and white uniform stood up from behind the desk. "You, my son? I can't find my son. Can you make an announcement or something?" The teen closed his eyes. "Yeah, give me 1 second. I'm kind of new, so I think." "I don't have a second. If you can't help, then get me a goddamn manager," I snarled. A petite girl, also in high school by the looks of it, turned the corner, oblivious to the nature of the conversation. "Hey, you can't talk to him like that," she pouted. "There's no need to be rude." I stabbed my finger at her, my temper fraying. "I'll be as rude as I damn well like. Get me a fucking manager or I'll go back there and find one myself." The police were called, primarily for me. I was screaming, knocking things over, foaming at the mouth, as my wife put it. The cops told me I'd have to calm down, or they'd handcuff me. They sent out an announcement over the park's PA system. "William, your parents are looking for you at the lifeguard station." If you can find a lifeguard, we can get you back to them as soon as possible." "Don't worry," the lifeguard manager said. "We've radioed all our employees. He'll be back in no time." As it turns out, lost children in places like this are fairly common. The problem was, Will never turned up. How do you go home after that? We stayed as long as we could, but it's not like we could sleep on the slides. So the same day I left for the Waterpark with my family, we returned home, one short. Lila didn't know what was happening. We told her Will had gotten lost, and the police were looking for him. She asked why we weren't looking for him. She began to cry. The funny thing about humans is how simultaneously effective and ineffective we are at lying to ourselves. Because a deep part of yourself, something in your core that you know you can trust, smells the bullshit. And yet we'll take that lie and run with it as far as we can until our legs give out or we crash face first into a wall. After the first day, that part of me knew I'd never see Will again, but I ran like hell. My lust for closure deflated my marriage like a leaking water balloon. I was stupid to think I wouldn't get laughed out of court during custody proceedings. But the one reprieve I had came yesterday. If I couldn't have answers, if I couldn't have my family or my son back, then I'd get some sweet revenge. This last year, I'd been leading media campaigns, doing interviews, degrading myself into what I used to frown on and call an activist, all to destroy the water park that took my son. The park was small, got a lot of bad press in the local outlets where most of its customers were. Apparently, this wasn't the first incident in the park's history. Far from it, actually. There was a long list of lawsuits and scandals, but mine was the last straw, and eventually they were forced to close. Yesterday was the first day of the demolition. I watched it in person, a one-man audience, and it felt good. I was getting ready to leave around midday when a commotion at the site caught my attention. Axe, grab the axe. The crew was in chaos, and no one was around to stop me from hopping the barrier to get a closer look. "It's dead. Stop. It's dead." I was too far away to see what the men were standing over and crept closer. "That thing's a world record. Call someone." "Who?" "The police. Animal control. Call someone, for Christ's sake." "Where did you find it?" "In here." "Well, go check it. Be careful." I felt my way along a bulldozer, close enough now, and stuck my head past the edge. The scene made my knees buckle. I couldn't comprehend what I was looking at. Dead and covered in hacks and slash marks was a python. Never mind a snake. It was the largest animal I'd ever seen up close. Long as a school bus, maybe longer, stretched out. Despite its size, it looked thin, as if it hadn't eaten in weeks. "Tell me what happened," one of the crew asked a younger worker. "We were using the machine, clearing the area like you said. Went and knocked over those porta potties, and the dragon came rearing its head out from one of the holes beneath." The crew began to buzz, taking pictures of the beast and kicking it. The construction man nodded and called for the worker who had gone to check the hole. "Come on out. That's a shithole. Nothing to find." "Boss." The site fell silent. "What is it?" "There's bones. There are bones down here." I woke up screaming the next morning. I wandered around the house until I went for the newspaper. After all the pieces were collected, the bones they found belonged to 10 unique skeletons. The python, a reticulated one, was 26 feet long. It found the park's humidity nice and chose a place it wouldn't be found. It headlined the local paper for a day before the story was pulled. The previous owners of the park still had some influence in the area. And what did I get? Closure. I would have rather been buried with my unanswered questions.